I got to tell you guys and gals and Z's, because I know you're all patrons. You are so lucky. Like, I honestly, a day feels weird. Unless I'm hanging out with like, Stephanie and Ellen. Well, even then we record stuff, but a day feels weird if I'm not recording something. You know what I mean? like I don't know. I feel like, I didn't record something today. What the hell? You're lucky you don't get content like every day. You're lucky because I feel like it most of the time. And, I just always have something to say, quite frankly. Like there's always something that runs through my mind. Boy, I just got done reading a couple books that I will be doing book reviews of. One of them I need to like re-listen to though, and that's The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. Holy shit! Oh, I was waiting for this book. It is everything I ever wanted, but I'm re-listening to it again right now because it's a lot to take in. But then the other one, of course, is one that I had kind of read in the past, and that's Bloodline of the Gods by Nick Redfern. Now, one of those books is on the order of high science. The other is not. But even though it gives it a shot, but I will be reviewing both of those books for Patreon only, actually, in the very near future. Though in the upcoming Sovereign Tech Prime episode, Bloodline of the Gods might come up. I might bring it up. Anyway, I just took my pre-workout drink. So I've got like 20, 30 minutes, and within like probably 15 minutes, it's going to kick in. So if suddenly I start talking a whole hell of a lot faster, I mean, the amount of milligrams of caffeine in the fucking pre-workout drinks, holy shit. I mean, it'll be workout time, baby. And we're going to get down. Oh, but, so what I'm doing here actually is something that I really wish I could do more often. But I'm one of those guys. Well, I don't have everything. Nobody has everything, right? But like, believe it or not, I don't buy a whole lot. Like the things that I buy, I guess I buy CDs here and there when they come out, maybe a Funko, and I don't know, some like books that I just end up getting scanned. I end up sharing with you in the end. But I don't like buy a whole lot of like things, like that's just not my style. But anyway, but when I get new hardware, like I did the review for the Trezor Model T, which people really enjoyed. I mean, it's not a rare occurrence, but it's kind of a rare occurrence, and I wish I could do it more because I love reviewing hardware. And so I have a little hardware review here to put on you. And this is something I pre-ordered. So I had heard about it. It must have been like November 2017. It was a while ago. And I think finally, maybe in January or February of 2018, they finally took the pre-orders for it through GameStop. So, yep, we're talking about a game controller here. And it is the Duke, as it's called. Hyperkin made it, which Hyperkin is great for making all kinds of, modern, but they're best known for like the Retron consoles, which are consoles that emulate classic consoles, the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, etc. And you can actually put in cartridges. Some of them are even like multi-cart where you could put in, like I think the Retron 5 has like 5 different game systems in it. In one console, you could put in a Nintendo cartridge, an NES cartridge, an SNES cartridge, a Genesis cartridge, and a Master System. I mean, you could just go nuts, right? Oddly enough, I don't think they've made, I'll tell you, the one system I'd love, you can do it on a PC, I know, and I do it, okay? But I mean, like, it'd be cool to have a console that was actually the Game Boy, and you could pop that up onto a TV, but I guess it'd be a little bit of a trick, and Nintendo's probably going to release something like that in the near future. Anyway, okay, so Hyperkin, anyway, they're well known for dealing in retro gaming and all that and releasing, like, very high-quality classic controllers, as well as modern controllers, too. Like, I'm a big fan of their X91 controllers, which are Xbox One controllers that also work with PC. Most peripherals that work with the Xbox One or even the Xbox 360 works with a Windows PC or even Linux, and Mac too. But anyway, I love their X91 controllers because like it feels like a classic controller, like it has that smaller styling to it, but then it has all of the modern buttons of an Xbox One controller. Very, very nicely done. I have a bunch of these, and for like, whenever whoever's over, to play games, like sometimes you got to go three players or something, and we do that. Actually, that reminds me, I need to do a review of the joysticks, the arcade sticks that I recently acquired, because, boy, you want to talk about a great time. Ellen, Stephanie, and I, we were killing it on Battletoads. It was amazing. But anyway, so this is actually what I'm about to review. The Duke is the exact opposite. It is the literal antithesis to the X91, where it is not a small controller. It is a massive controller. And the name the Duke, some of you who are gamers may recognize that name, because that's one of a couple names that were bestowed upon not the Xbox One or the Xbox 360, but the original Xbox's controller. Now, this controller, which came out, was that like 2001 when that came out? This controller, which would in just a matter of like a year or two, would be replaced almost across the board by what was called the Xbox Controller S, which the S stood for small because they made it significantly smaller. I mean, this is really well known because it was a massive controller. The other name it was given was the loaf of bread. Because it looked like a loaf of bread, because it had the curvature and everything. I mean, it looked like split top bread. I mean, it really did. That's what I always called it, was the bread loaf. Loaf of bread or bread loaf, those the names would be interchangeable. But then, it also get popularly known as the Duke. Now, I'll tell you, I mean, I bought the original Xbox when it came out for a variety of reasons, including Shenmue 2, like Knights of the Old Republic, a lot of this other stuff, which some of those had PC versions as well, but for the Xbox it worked. And the main thing, like with the original Xbox, I'll tell you, the main seller for me, which there was Halo. Like I played Halo to no end, the first Halo. I don't know, I didn't get so much into the others in the series. I did play Halo 2, but the main thing that sold me on the original Xbox, well, two things, actually. There's two things. One is that it was the first literal 3D operating system, as in the operating system that the Xbox, had within it, okay, was literally like it was three-dimensional. It had depth. Like you would go deep into menus. You would go back and forth. In fact, it might still be the only 3D operating system ever popularly released, which was really impressive. Like I thought that was so cool. It's like, oh, finally we're getting there. And of course, my grandest hopes was that the Xbox, the original Xbox, not the Xbox One or 360, the original Xbox would eventually lead us to something closer to a virtual reality future, of course, which is only now, becoming a thing. But and 17 years later, or you know what I mean. So anyway, that was cool. But the primary feature about the Xbox that me and all my friends thought was really cool, it wasn't the fact that you could like link your Xboxes and you could have up to 16 players with 4 televisions playing Halo. It wasn't that. It was the fact that the claim was that you could put your own music, your own MP3s, onto the hard drive of the original Xbox. And then on games, you could play your own music. That was it. That was the feature where I was like, oh, this is what I've wanted the whole time. Because you think of all the racing games, all the fighting games, whatever else, where you just wanted your own music to be a part of it. Now you could say, wow, isn't that really basic? Isn't there like some simple shit that, simple like life hacks that you could do to allow for that? Yeah, sure. But like this felt right. This felt a little more official and everything. The problem is that very few games took advantage of the feature. Like super few games took advantage of the feature. Okay, so, that wasn't a big deal. But now, to get to the point, number 3 of what impressed the fuck out of me with the Xbox was I liked the bread loaf. I liked the Duke. I liked the huge controller because, well, I mean, I have literal double XL hands, okay? Like, that's the size gloves I have to buy and everything, which makes it a pain in the ass, honestly, to find gloves in stores. Because, that's the problem. That's the deal when you have double XL sized hands. So don't get any ideas. Anyway. So, like this, it was a controller that felt right. Now, I've said consistently over the years that I think the best controller ever released was actually the GameCube controller. I think that was brilliant. Like, it was just like the camera stick, everything about it was it was a brilliant controller, and it felt good, including the Wavebird version, which was the wireless version of the GameCube controller. But the Duke the big bread loaf original Xbox controller just felt magnificent, and it felt, and I get it. Like, you had to have giant hands to really be able to take advantage and use this controller. But it was the primary controller that the Xbox came with. Is that part of the reason that the original Xbox didn't do as well as, say, the Xbox 360 did? Maybe. I don't know. But Microsoft corrected it pretty quickly, which I think is actually kind of a shame because, like I said, I love that controller. So when Hyperkin back in 2017 announced that they were going to re-release the Duke, and they got it, it's officially licensed from Microsoft, the whole thing, I got excited as fuck. In fact, I'm sure I mentioned it on various Sovereign Tech Prime episodes or whatever that would be happening. I had to have mentioned it on a Game Talk because, I mean, this is exciting. And so finally, almost, I mean, it was just a couple days ago, so it's practically, I mean, my birthday's not till Saturday the 12th, but like, it felt like my birthday. I just see it, and then there's the Duke, and I just, holy shit. And I hold it in my hands, and it's still, like, you forget. You remember that it was huge. You forget just how fucking huge this controller was. But it feels so good. I instantly cranked up Double Dragon 4, and tried it out on there because it comes with a modern USB cord. In fact, it's a 9-foot USB cord. It is wired. It's not wireless. Probably the only reason it's not wireless is because they probably couldn't get the official Microsoft licensing. Microsoft really is wanting to be in control of wireless controllers, no pun intended, with, as far as the Xbox One goes. I'm not sure what exactly the reasoning is behind that, but it's not really a problem because the Xbox One controller is phenomenal. It's arguably, I mean, if there was a top 3 of controllers, it'd easily be in the top 3. There's no debate, in my opinion, for that. So it's not a problem that they're being, real sticklers about it. But anyway, this is a wired controller. And honestly, that's fine because it adds to the nostalgia, and it's nice. It's not like a built-in cable. It's one that you can disconnect. It just uses a regular, what is that, Type B mini USB connector at the one end, and then it has the A on the other end. That's fine, and it's 9 feet. Awesome. Should be fine in just about anybody's living room, even though I usually play in much closer quarters. And again, so you've got that, and again, it feels so great. It's very plastic. Right. And it doesn't have, what's funny is apparently it weighs more than an Xbox One controller. It doesn't feel like it. Like, it doesn't have the batteries in it. So it doesn't feel like it has the same kind of heft. It doesn't feel cheap, but it feels very plastic as to where official Xbox One controllers, almost have like that rubbery feel. This has none of the above. And it's loaded with improvements. They added on the extra buttons that the original Xbox controller didn't have that now the Xbox One controller does have. In fact, its singular flaw, I'll talk a little bit more about the positives here in a second, but its singular flaw, in my opinion, with this controller, as long as you can handle the size, and I understand some of you can't, is that the face buttons, okay, like the LB and RB, originally the Xbox controller didn't have that. And, I don't mean the triggers, I mean the face buttons just above it. And those feel very awkward, and they're kind of rubbery. They don't feel right, but how rarely, how often are you even going to use those? Myself, I'm usually including the Duke, I'm usually using it to play emulated, classic games. So I'm generally only using A and B or something anyway. So not the biggest problem for me. But also they did put on the black and white buttons that the original had to where those are some, there are options there. There's just a ton of buttons on this thing to try and bring it up to a modern spec where it could be used on an Xbox One in its completeness, as well as still have that classic design. They would have had to redesign the controller if they were going to make those face buttons feel good. And so I get it, and I'm not really complaining. They stink, but I'm glad they're there rather than not, personally. So, now back to the positives with this. Everything feels right. The rubberized sticks feel good. The D-pad, another quick little problem. They kept the classic D-pad, and I get it. To keep it retro and keep it feeling like the original Duke, you do that. But I wouldn't have minded if it was a more precise D-pad because it's a very, very sloshy D-pad. in my opinion, on it. It's the full circle instead of actually being a crosshair, which I think allows for a little more precision. But whatever, it's not that big a deal. I've played with using it, and it does great. It responds great. It's not necessarily a problem. It's kind of a funny shape for it to have. But of course, I think at the time Microsoft wasn't thinking much about that, and they just wanted you using the analog sticks anyway, which this has both of them, and again, they're rubberized and they feel great. And if other positives, the interesting thing is, and this is maybe the most standout feature I think for a lot of people, is that the big Xbox, there used to on the classic controller, there was a huge bubble right in the middle of the controller, and all it did was, it's like a plastic dome, and it said Xbox underneath. Okay, that is retained, but there's now an LCD screen inside of that little plastic dome. And it's a full-on button that, at least on Windows 10, I'm not sure what it does on an Xbox One because I don't have one, nor do I really want one. On a Windows 10 computer, it will bring up the game bar, okay, which is a feature of Windows 10, which that's fine. But it's a full LCD screen that shows the Xbox logo, and then it does like this whole little startup sequence that's what the original Xbox console would actually do. In one way, this is great. In another way, I think it's kind of a lost opportunity. So having an LCD screen built into the controller was part of the original Xbox design back in 2001. The designers of the Xbox wanted to have that. So it's really cool that now finally Hyperkin made that a reality. The original plans for the Xbox, they made it a reality. But here's the thing, is that I think the reason they wanted an LCD screen wasn't just to show off the Xbox logo. I think they were wanting to copy the system that came out 2 years previous, that being the Sega Dreamcast, which the memory card unit, and I've talked about this on various Patreon content and Cybertech Prime episodes. The memory card unit, the VMU, video memory unit, had an actual screen on it that could give you information and allow you to interact with the game in unique ways, and you could even like play games on it, when you were away from your Dreamcast. It was really interesting. So it's a missed opportunity to not allow this screen, and maybe there will be firmware updates where they allow for it if the Duke sells well. I don't know, because I don't see it's a full-on LCD screen. There's nothing, it's not like they can't do different colors and all that other shit, even though it's mainly a lot of green and black on there right now. It's a missed opportunity to not allow it to be something that could display some kind of information on it. You know what I mean? But then games would have to be programmed to allow for the display of that information. I understand, but it'd be cool if they released, some kind of SDK maybe that would allow, whatever development houses to take advantage of it. I would do something with it if I had an SDK for it. I don't know. It's cool, but I really wish it would do a little bit more. But I mean, it's still beautiful to look at, and it's a lot of fun to just keep pressing that button and then have it go through the startup sequence on the screen. It doesn't affect the controls in any way, really, but just to watch that happen. I mean, it's nice. It gives it a premium look because this device does sell for $70, or this controller sells for $70, which is about $10 to $20 more than your average Xbox One controller. So anyway, that's a really nice feature of it. Otherwise, it's the Duke, same and pretty much the same size. I think it might be just a scotch smaller than the original Duke, but it's still got that massive feel. I wouldn't have minded if it had a little more heft, but that's okay because the original didn't have that kind of heft. It feels good. I'm so excited to have this. I am going to use it all the time. Now, should you use it? Well, that depends. Do you have giant man hands? And I don't mean man in any kind of like gender offensive way. Do you have giant man hands? If you do, this is the controller for you. I mean, this really, really is. Okay, you got yourself some double XL hands. This is going to feel so natural, and you're going to wonder where it's been all your life if you've never messed with it. Okay, and it works great with Windows or with PCs as well as the Xbox One. If you don't, it's an oddity that isn't meant for you, and and that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's a reason that they made the X91. If you do have smaller hands, there's the X91 for you, which is an awesome controller from Hyperkin. So Hyperkin is just making sure all the bases are covered and hooking everybody up that wants to get hooked up, and I'm really glad about it. This is, bottom line, this is a beautiful controller. I mean, it's absolutely it. I mean, it's a historical oddity. It really is. It's a part of gaming history. Maybe not so kindly looked upon. To me, very kindly looked upon. I'm a huge fan. Like I said, I mean, I've had these hands for a while, and I just love the way that like it really takes everything I've got to encapsulate this thing, and it just feels right. It's, again, GameCube controller is the greatest controller of all time, minus what the Dreamcast could do, but that had more to do with the VMU than necessarily the Dreamcast controller itself. This ranks up there pretty high with being one of the best controllers ever. And like I said, I love its size. So if you're in it for the size, this is one to get. And it's kind of nice actually to not have to deal with. I mean, it sucks that some computers I have are they don't have practically any ports to connect to, and so usually I'm used to connecting with Bluetooth, but that's a matter of taste and what machine you have. Most people, that's not really an issue. You're not hooking these things up to MacBooks or anything generally, so having a full USB port, that's fine. And if it's USB-C on your computer, well, you can just buy a mini Type B USB to USB-C cable, and away you go, and you're locked and loaded. So that's nice too, that it's kind of future-proofed in its adaptability, even if your computer doesn't have USB. But if you only have Bluetooth, you're kind of screwed. So, but it's a stunning little piece of gaming history brought back to life in 2018. I'm so glad that it was. It actually had been delayed. I think it was supposed to come out like early April, and it didn't come out until first week of May, or second week of May, I guess technically. But man, is it a beauty. And Hyperkin just does it right. I recommend everything from that company. Sometimes I see reviews on Amazon, and I'm going like, what did you people do to your fucking devices? Like, I mean, I buy Hyperkin across the board, unless it's what's the other company that I buy from, Retrobit or whatever. Like they're really solid too. But yeah, I have no problems ever recommending their stuff, their consoles, their controllers, everything. It's all beautiful. Even I buy just their extension cables for the classic systems. Those are really handy to have too. So yeah, if you are looking for a wild controller experience and a very unique one, I don't think these are necessarily sold out. I pre-ordered because I figured they would get made in limited quantities and would be sold out. But I don't think they've been sold out. I think you can get your hands on them. I definitely recommend the Duke. Easily one of the greatest controllers of all time. Updated to where it works with just about anything in 2018, and I think that's fantastic. So yeah, all right. Anyway, this wasn't meant to be a long review at all. Just a short to let you know. And yeah, I think this thing's gonna last a while. I mean, if in a year the buttons start to go on it, I'll let you know. I'll tell you, no, like the damn thing, like the quality is not that great. Would I end up buying another one? Yeah, because honestly, I always want a Duke in my life here, because I just love this controller. It just feels so right. It feels like the controller made for me. So anyway, that's it. That's it for now. And more Patreon content to come out this month. I will see all of you on the other side. And maybe I'll see you on the other side of the computer screen while I'm holding the Duke in my hand and I am looking squarely at you. Woo! See you on the other side.